Hey, Shalom, Israel. First off, I would like to say, Call Halal, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shah Bahashim Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me. Also would like to say peace, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful elect, the Akim, that's preaching his word in sincerity and faith throughout the four corners of the earth. For the few sisters that watch and sincerely believe and rock with us, Shalom to you as well. Just back in the spirit with another lesson. I'm probably going to title this something to the effect of like storing up in the spirit or time to store up in the spirit. But I'm going to use a carnal example, which you can apply to the spirit, and really this is just exhortation for brothers who know what's going on. Just at all, to the best of your ability, just try to be in the spirit to be prepared for what's coming down the stretch as we know it. And matter of fact, I was going to get an account with Joseph in Egypt, but before I get that account, I'm gonna get this first, because you got to understand the times that you're in. The scriptures says in Ephesians 5:15, be ye circumspect. You got to redeem the time because the days are evil. So we know that we're coming into an evil time or a bad time. So you got to take heed. You got to prepare mentally, spiritually, physically to some degree. Of course, the just shall live by faith. But you have to use all manner of wisdom and exercise prudence in the times that we're in right now, more so in the spirit than anything, and just building up in a certain level of faith. But Salakia, I'm going to get the first scripture I want to get, Salakia. It's actually in the Apocrypha. And I had the Blue Letter Bible up, I think. This is 2nd Ezra. I want to get 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, real quick before I get the account of Genesis, the 41st chapter with Joseph. This is 2nd Ezra 15 and 5. Matter of fact, I'll start at 4. It says, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. So you got a faithless generation. A majority of the people that's living today, they're without faith. That's why in 2nd Ezra 5, it says the land shall be barren of faith, and they shall be taken away in a great number. I'm loosely paraphrasing. So we know that the just, the hopeful elect, that's how we going to live through our faith, man. But the Lord does give us wisdom to be able to act and just do certain things in the physical, which ultimately we know our faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah, that's going to be our guiding force so we can prevail out of all this evil that's to come. It says, behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. So that's really what I wanted to highlight in verse 5. That's what the time that we're in right now, to where the Lord is bringing all manner of plagues upon this world as we know it. Right now, namely, the major plague that's just halting the earth as we know it is this whole COVID-19 or coronavirus, man. And this is just a small thing, that COVID-19 is only a shadow of things that's going to come as far as the evils and the plagues in this place and just around the world as we know it. It also says the sword, famine, death, and destruction. So meaning all different types of uprising of the people, race riots, the people spoiling their neighbors' houses for the lack of bread, like it talks about later in this chapter. And then something that I want to key in on in this lesson is famine, which, brothers, we talk in our chat, and pretty much we got solid information going into how pretty much a lot of meat production is being halted, to where a lot of these stores, they're not going to have the usual supply of certain meats. So that's just going to create a panic in the markets. People are going to be trying to hoard things, and then the grocery stores and people that sell meat, they're going to be limited items. Basically, a lot of things are going to be rationed out. So this is just the beginning of the famine. The scriptures talk about the beginning of sorrows. And of course, famine is one plague within the beginning of sorrows. So we're coming into the beginning of great famine. It says death and destruction, and all of those things, one chain of events, just builds and snowballs and to the ultimate destruction of great Babylon. So I want to get this account with Joseph because it's a great famine coming to the land, And that's just one plague that the Lord is using you know, as we get to the buildup of the ultimate destruction of America. But I'm going to get this account with Joseph, one of our forefathers. That's why the scripture says in Romans, the 15th chapter, the things which were written aforetime were written for our learning. So we have to inquire of our forefathers, like it tells you in Job, the 8th chapter. The same situations that they dealt with, we can apply it through the Spirit today. But this whole chapter is beautiful. It's just going to an account when Joseph was in Egypt. He was made great. He basically deciphered Pharaoh's dream when you go into this account, and he basically told Pharaoh, you're going to have 7 years of abundance, and then you're going to have 7 years of famine. So I'm going to kind of pick up in the point in that regard of this narrative with Joseph in Egypt. It says, this is Genesis 41 and 47. I'll read 46. It says, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. So Pharaoh basically set Joseph up as his right-hand man in charge. He was second in command pretty much under Pharaoh. It says, and in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. So that's what I was going into. If you read up into the narrative, Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dream, and he told Pharaoh there was going to be 7 years of plenteousness or abundance, and then 7 years of famine. It says, and in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. So Joseph, he was a visionary. He already knew the deal, just because he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. He already know through the Spirit. Basically, he was a prophet. He already knew the will of the Lord that was going to play out in all of the midst of the land at that time. So he was basically being prudent and getting the kingdom prepared. As a ruler, as a rightful ruler. That's what he was doing. He was getting his kingdom prepared to go through the famine, the 7 years of the famine. It says, verse 49, and Joseph gathered corn, which we understand that corn is a non-perishable food item. So that shows that Joseph was in the Spirit. He knew what the hell he was doing. He knew to stock up a non-perishable item, to something that's not going to go bad, because he knew what was coming. So in this example, it says that he gathered up corn. He stored corn. It says, and Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. So he just had just an abundance of this grain corn without number, So he was just basically stocking up, because he already knew the will of the Lord as far as after the 7 years of abundance, what was going to come right behind it, So he was being prepared. So for brothers in the Spirit today, we don't need to be trying to prep, so to speak, but it is prudent if you have the ability, stock your house with certain things that you're going to need. Ultimately, we know as everything just breaks down that we're going to live by faith. The Lord is going to have to show us mercy for us to prevail out of this situation. But still, you use the wisdom that the Lord gives you. Spiritually, more importantly, that's the mindset you should be in, storing up treasure in heaven, building up in the Spirit, man. Just in every aspect, you just should be storing up, getting prepared for what's about to come. That's the point being made, and why this whole story with Joseph, I was meditating on it, but I'm going to continue on. It says, and unto Joseph were born, I'm going to just read the rest of this chapter. It says, and unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, or Manasseh, which it means made to forget. It says, for the Most High said, he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And then when you go into the scriptures in Sirach 11, it says, in the day of prosperity, there's a forgetfulness of affliction. And in the day of affliction, there's no remembrance of prosperity. I'm loosely paraphrasing. So Joseph birthed his first son, Manasseh, during a time of abundance, man. That's why his name, it means made to forget. He wasn't thinking about the affliction, because even though Joseph, he was right under Pharaoh in Egypt, he was technically still in captivity. The nation of Israel at this time was in captivity. It says, for the Most High said, he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. In the name of the second called he Ephraim, for the Most High had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So Ephraim, those are the two sons of Joseph that were born during the time of abundance. And he called Ephraim his second son, that name, it means to be fruitful. And it says, for the Most High hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth, and when you go into that dearth, that word dearth is basically it means famine. It says, in the 7 years of dearth or famine began to come according as Joseph has said, as according to Joseph had prophesied through the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. It says, in the 7 years of dearth began to come according as Joseph has said, and the dearth was in all lands. But in all the land of Egypt, there was bread. So Joseph was on point, man. And all of the other lands outside of Egypt, man, they was completely through, man. They was completely wiped out because Joseph had the foresight to prepare and store up the corn. Egypt was on, man. They was in the game. Verse 55, and when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. What he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because all the famine was sore in all lands. So because Joseph had the presence of mind to store up, man, all the different people in the lands around about Egypt, they were having to come to Egypt to get food. And that includes his brothers that sold him into slavery and his father, So I brought that whole narrative up in the spiritual mindset level as to say we gotta store up in the spirit, on the spiritual aspect of things. Of course, we understand that stocking up food and bottled waters and stuff like that, ultimately that's not gonna save us. But you gotta be wise. You gotta use and exercise the wisdom that the Most High gave you. We understand ultimately that it's through faith, but you got to prepare your mind to just go through this course. It's time to store up in the spirit. That's really the point. Matter of fact, I'm going to get this real quick. Just another account. Just another example through the scriptures. This is Proverbs 6, and I'll start at Proverbs 6 and 6. It says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provided her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long will thy sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of sleep? So the ant, when you study ants, man, they prepare for the seasons, So during the time where they have the ability to gather food and just set everything up, man, they go ahead and get it done, man. They work as a well-oiled machine, storing up, basically. They getting their storehouse together, for the winter. It says, provided her meat in the summer and gathered her food in the harvest. So really, that's what brothers that understand this word should be doing. We should be storing up all of these different things that we've been learning from the apostles and the elders, and really exercising these things in our own walk of faith, knowing that we come into a time where wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of our times, like we always quote Isaiah 33. So we got to get into that mindset now of really just storing up everything that we've been toiling in the scriptures to learn, everything that we've been breaking down on the highways and the byways and different shows that we've been putting up, going into. It's really time to process and exercise those things, man. And just store up that knowledge, just store up in all things, man. Like we've been going into during this time of the quarantine, to where people are forced to have to stay at home. Brothers should be leveling up in every aspect of life. Physically, getting your body prepared, doing intermittent fasting, dry fast, water fast, whatever the case is when you can do it, eating the right foods, getting some exercise. And then, of course, through the spirit, steady reading, praying, meditating on the scriptures and the prophecies, breaking bread with brothers. This is just a level up time, just because we know that evil is on the horizon. We know that Satan's going to come with great wrath because he knows that he has a short time. So we just need to just store up in every way. And of course, too, even in carnal ways. That's why brothers that's within the different camps, you have to pay tithes and give offerings too, man, because we come into a time where we're going to have to depend on each other, and we're going to have to take care of one another. Nobody else ain't going to do it. Everybody else is going to be through. So just in a lot of different levels, this lesson is relevant, that it's time to store up through the spirit. It says, I'll read this again. This is Proverbs 6 and 9. It says, how long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of sleep? And it tells you in Romans, the 13th chapter, arise out of sleep, for now your salvation is nearer than when you believed. I'm loosely paraphrasing that scripture. So if you know that your salvation is on the line, that you know that the destruction of great Babylon, all of these things are on the horizon, you want to prepare. You want to start storing up in the spirit. You want to try to get those brownie points, so to speak, with the Most High, so you can store up as much as you can. So hopefully your sacrifice will be honored by the Most High, to where you can receive that mercy. Everybody should be in store up mode through the spirit right now. That's just the time that we rocking in right now. And more so spiritually than anything, because I don't want brothers to get the wrong idea when I say, we're going to have to depend on the Lord. If you got a household, go get things for your household if you have the ability to, man. If you got to go get a little extra food and water and certain essentials to sustain yourself in the event that these stores are going to be rationing and are going to be shut down, put yourself in the best position possible, But even though we know that it's going to take so-called or divine intervention to ultimately deliver us out of this hell that's going to come, more so you have to be storing up in the spirit, storing up your level of faith. Matter of fact, what is that script? I think it's Matthew. I'm going to grab that real quick. Matthew, the 6th chapter. This is St. Matthew 6. I think it's at the... Yeah, this is Matthew 6 and 19. It says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doeth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doeth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So the point being made in that lesson is it's time to really start storing up our treasures in heaven. And through the spirit, you got to examine yourself and your character and your capacity and measurement that the Most High gave you in the spirit to know how to do that, how to lay up those treasures in heaven. And it can come through a variety of different ways. The scripture says that charity covers a multitude of sin. And we understand that the time that we're coming into now is going to be so bad, and just a time that this earth as we know it has never seen. The only thing that is going to save us is just mercy. We're going to need mercy. So we want to put ourselves in the best position to receive that mercy, man. Just picking up a brother, just being willing to just take the low, so to speak, for another brother to win, just being that ultimate example of humility and of a servant, just as Yahweh Shai himself was, just doing everything to the best of your ability to make your calling and election sure. It's really just time to store up in the spirit. It says, verse 21 is key too. It says, for where your heart, or Salakia, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So whatever you into, that's really what you about at the end of the day. Whatever you spend most of your time occupied in, that's really what you about, And we really can't be trying to establish treasure within this world, because this world as we know it is about to be destroyed. So everything that we're doing right now, we're investing in something that's unseen. That's the whole concept of faith when you go into Hebrews, the 11th chapter. We're all in on an investment that is not seen at this appointed time, even though we understand it and visualize it and see it through the spirit, But everything that we're doing as far as our actions and our intentions is upon storing treasure in heaven, so that we can be delivered out of this peril and all of this devastation and hell and evil that's about to touch this earth as we know it. So it's a beautiful time, brothers, just be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Use the world, but don't abuse the world. Just understand and exercise how to operate in this world, man. And then of course, always put the priority on top of everything that you got going on, which is, just being a steward of this gospel and this faith through our teaching, going out on the highways and the byways, making our bodies a living sacrifice, through just breaking bread with brothers, putting up lessons and just all the different fruits of the spirit that we're trying to store up more treasures so that we can be sealed as one of the Most High's elect. So with all being said, I'll just end out on that. Hopefully this all made sense and edified the body. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Rakak Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom, peace and blessings to the elect.